Hey guys, this Toddler activity blanket has so many fun new skills to practice, like buttons and buttonholes, a zipper, even two kinds of pockets. For you, not for the toddler, silly. We're going to learn so much making this wonderful gift. So let's get started. We are learning so much today that I'm going to have a guide that walks you through what goes in each square and what all you need available for download. All right, let's make it. I'm doing the messy hair, no makeup thing today because I am so excited to make this baby blanket, guys. This is the sketch. It kind of outlines what materials you need for the different squares. Of course, you can do whatever you want, but also I'll have a link below for you to download that has a better description of all the items that I have that I'm laying out here. Some of them I went ahead and ordered from Amazon, including the crinkle paper and the bells and pom-poms. But a lot of it is just scraps or stuff I got from the remnant aisle because you don't need much for each square of this blanket. They're all 7 by 7, I believe, which ends up being 6 by 6 when I do my 1/2 inch seam allowance. If you want to buy the whole kit, I will send one to you. Drop me a DM. Now, the first thing we're going to do is machine applique. Later, when I did this again, I went ahead and sent the cut file to my Cricut. You could use a Memento or a Silhouette to cut it out the perfect size so I didn't have to use my very favorite duck-billed applique scissors. But for now, I went ahead and just used my Aqua Magic Plus. This is sticky and it's going to dissolve away the first time we wash the blanket, to pick my embroidery and stick my flannel square directly to it so I didn't have to hoop it or anything. You can see that I'm finding the center, and we're just going to pop that in the machine. Love Aqua Magic because you can reposition if you get it wrong the first time. In the Joy of Sewing Advisor, there's a section for machine applique. It actually shows you how to do an applique step by step, as well as bringing up the designs that are appliques. And I just think that this duck is so cute. So that's what we're going to do today. You also see me switching out my A foot, that's my all-purpose sewing foot, for my R foot, which is an embroidery foot. The R foot kind of hovers above your fabric. The Q foot moves up and down with each stitch, resulting in a higher stitch quality. But I do a lot of sewing on this machine, so I usually leave the R foot on even though it's not as high quality. It's easier to switch out. You saw me cutting out my very favorite duck-billed applique scissors, but this would also be such a fun project, like I mentioned earlier, to turn into a cut file and do out of vinyl. I used this holographic print just to add a little texture and shine variety to the activity blanket. Here I am sewing on a piece of Velcro for our Velcro pocket, and this machine, like many of the machines in the Husqvarna lineup, have Omni Motion stitches. That means that they can sew in 8 cardinal directions without you having to turn your fabric, which is so useful for tight spaces or putting patches on sleeves, all that kind of thing. I'm using it here to get perfect 90-degree corners on my Velcro. These stitches usually have their very own menus, so be sure to check the Joy OS Advisor or your manual if you want to try it out for yourself. Now I'm going to make this little clear pocket inside. Now, the ladies, when I taught this class, pointed out that we should fill this little see-through kind of a chiffon-y piece of fabric with wooden rings, and it turned out so cute because you can pull them out, but they're not going to get lost. And you see, I'm just Velcroing my pocket squares together, and I'm going to stay stitch all the way around the edge to keep my pieces from coming apart. So there's my Velcro pocket, and right next to it is my vinyl pocket. So that is some vinyl that I put bells and sequins and all sorts of fun stuff in. I serged up the edges, and what you see me doing here next is actually stay stitching the edges. I realized that I didn't want to be fighting pom-poms when I was putting the squares together with my 1/2 inch seam allowance. So instead, I pushed all the sequins and stuff to the middle, and I'm just going to release it afterwards. It's just a long basting stitch. Now we're going to make our zipper square. It's just a 6-inch square that I've cut in half. I found these big chunky zippers with a large handle to grip. You put your zipper right side down, teeth side down on your fabric. So with your E-foot, your zipper foot, that's going to help you line it up nice and tight. And then you see I flip the whole thing over, flip the fabric back, and do a nice little top stitch on there. That's going to keep those little threads from getting stuck in the teeth and making it hard for your toddler to zip and unzip. We want them to have frustration-free practice, just like this zipper insertion is going to be frustration-free for you. I know it. After that, I'm just going to put my square on top of whatever square I have. I think I did flannel and flannel in this case, and top stitch all the way around the edge. It's going to get caught up fully in the seam later. I just want to put a stitch around the edge so I can cut off the tails on that zipper now before I sew the whole thing together. Now, just a second ago, you saw me do the important thing, which is to open your zipper a little bit before you sew over the section that will make it so you can't open your zipper, which is, of course, the end of the square. So be careful about that. The next square is easiest square. You literally buy this crinkle paper online, cut it out to the size of your flannel, and I just serged it right on there. So satisfied. For our next square, I'm so excited to talk about automatic buttonholes and one of the main mistakes I see when people are using them. But first, I'm using a little bit of stabilizer on this piece of cotton. I've used sticky tearaway. And I'm just going to make a tube because I want to have like these straps that are pulling over this button on this particular square. So I just sewed the short end and the long end. I've got the stabilizer that's going to be caught inside when I'm finished. And I'm putting on my automatic buttonhole. Now, this is the mistake I see a lot of people using making the automatic buttonhole. If your little red wheel is not on the fabric, it will not turn properly, and if it does not turn properly, your buttonhole will just keep sewing and sewing and sewing because it doesn't realize that any distance has taken place. Now you can either scoot it over like I did so that the full thing is on the fabric, or if you do need a buttonhole that's very close to the edge of something, I would put a piece of like bonus fabric next to it, a piece of scrap or something, just to keep it at the same height. You can pin them together so that they move together. Something easier to remove when you're finished, just to keep that wheel moving at the same height and pace as the rest of your buttonhole so that you can get that perfect effect. I use these big giant plastic buttons, and you guessed it, I'm just going to sew around the edge. How cute is that? My machine even sews on buttons, and you can see if you don't line those holes up right, it'll go right through the button itself. Next, I have some long minky strips. I'm going to lay the overlock chain inside of the channel of my minky strip right sides together. You can kind of see me arranging it in the middle, turning my fabric right sides together and sewing all the way down. At the end, that means that the 4-thread overlock chain is caught inside of the channel, and you have to be careful turning it at the top, but once you get it, you can actually turn this entire tube of fabric using the serging end itself that you started with. It's especially easy with something soft like minky. I cut these minky strips into about 13-inch pieces and thread some elastic inside to make this texture square with the scrunchie and the pom-poms and the rickrack. Here is the whole blanket laid out in its components. Feel free to grab a screenshot, or if you download my guide for making this, I will have which materials are in which square. Put the whole thing together using a 1/2-inch seam, and here is the blanket topper. It's so cute. I went ahead and put some tabs facing inwards towards the blanket before I sewed my minky on. I used a serger, but you could use a walking foot or put some piping on the edge. That would be really cute. You can see I've got my pocket with the stuff that pulls out. And after assembling the blanket, I did take the basting stitches out of my vinyl pocket so that the jingly bells and everything can make it all the way into the corners. I really love how these pom-pom turns out. I did a decorative stitch on top of them just for fun, And then I went ahead and used my walking foot to sew through all of the individual squares to add some stability. There are so many sewing skills jam-packed into this project, but there's also a lot of great motor skills and activities for the toddler that's going to receive it. I included that little loop at the very top so that you can clip it to a car seat or basket. All right, so here's the whole thing put together. Remember, if you want some step-by-step or a complete materials list, you're going to go ahead and click the link below in the description, as well as a place to pick up all the things like the crinkly paper that are a little harder to find in craft stores. I've got links for those too. So if this project was just right or super fun, I would love to encourage you to check out this video for my wrap, where we're going to do a little bit of beginner pattern drafting and use the really cheap Blizzard fleece to make an amazing gift. And if it was a little too hard, well, I'm going to have a series coming your way soon on sewing machine basics. If you've never touched a sewing machine before, I'm going to get you started. I cannot wait to see the pictures of your toddler activity blankets. Be sure to tag me and let me know what your favorite square was to make, or which skill you wish that I had included for us to learn together. See you next time. Bye.